We now shift our discussion from saving our planet to saving the health of future generations. Childhood obesity is a big problem, a major and growing issue, not only in low but also in middle and high income countries. Our next guest's research focuses on consumers as intuitive psychologists. So I now welcome Professor Margaret Campbell.
Thank you and hello. I am very happy to be here, although I must confess that I would rather be physically with those of you in Portugal than talking to you all over the internet from Colorado, where we just had 49 centimeters of snow in the last 2 days. It's been great to hear the other talks, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to share some of my ideas with you. I know it can be a good idea to start a talk with a funny story, but today I am going to be talking about overweight and obesity, and I don't have any funny stories about those topics. So what I'm going to do is jump right into some kind of disheartening data. As many of you know, obesity is a growing problem globally, including in Portugal, the red bars here, and even more so in the United States. According to the World Health Organization, globally, we now have more people who are obese than we have people who are underweight, and this occurs in every region around the world. We also see that overweight and obesity rates are growing strongly in children. Again, globally, we see the increase in the gold bars in Portugal, and unfortunately, the United States is a leader in this particular problem. We even see increasing rates in quite young people. The blue bar on this graph shows you children from 2 to 5, and you can see that the rates are higher as children get older, but that we do see this across ages. So why do we care about overweight and obesity? We care because of the negative psychological, social, and critically the health consequences of overweight and obesity. Overweight and obesity is now linked to more deaths globally than underweight is. Being overweight or obese is linked to mortality through a variety of different health issues, including stroke, heart disease, multiple types of cancer, type 2 diabetes, and now we know we need to add COVID-19 to that list. Overweight and obesity is also linked to increased health problems for children, including sleep problems like breathing problems, like asthma and sleep apnea, joint and musculoskeletal pain, and what we used to think of as adult health problems such as high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, and insulin resistance. Mike Norton showed some interesting data on life expectancy, but unfortunately in the last 3 years in the United States, children born in those 3 years now have a shorter life expectancy than their parents did. And experts are attributing it to this epidemic of overweight and obesity. On the face of it, overweight and obesity is simple. Humans gain weight when they consume more energy than they expend. However, we know that it's much more complicated than that because of the many factors that influence energy in and the many factors that influence energy out. It's a hard problem. It's a problem that something changed in the 1970s and we've seen increasing. So how can we address this difficult, multiply determined problem? I think it's clear we need multiple solutions, but today what I'd like to do is bring a marketing perspective together with a variety of types of research to propose a 4-pronged approach to add to some of the existing attempts that we're making already. And the 4 pieces of the approach that I'd like to discuss today are: 1, really focusing on prevention over intervention; 2, focusing on the energy in the consumption part of that equation; 3, shining a spotlight on children's healthy weight maintenance; but 4, targeting parents and other caregivers in order to shine that spotlight on children. So for the rest of the time I have with you today, I would like to walk through some of the evidence that supports these 4 components. First, bringing the research together, I propose that we focus on prevention over intervention. And the reason for this is twofold. Study after study shows that it's difficult to identify interventions that work, that help people who are overweight and obese to lose that excess weight. And 2, when people do succeed in losing weight, when an intervention works, the research shows that it's very hard for people to maintain the weight loss. There's a strong tendency for people to regain weight that they've lost. So interventions that work tend to be short-lived. Overall, the research shows that we are good at gaining weight. We as humans are not good at losing weight. However, right now, what we see is that the majority of attention is given to intervention, even for small children. A quick search of the research shows a lot of research focused on identifying interventions that can help people, but very little that is focused on preventing people from gaining weight to begin with. Some of you may share the experience that the data shows that the majority of physicians, including pediatricians, do not discuss diet or physical activity with their patients until they believe that their patients have gained too much weight. Again, there's this emphasis on intervention rather than prevention. But since the research shows that it is so difficult to lose excess weight once it's been gained, it really makes a lot of sense and lead to more success against the weight epidemic to focus on prevention to begin with. The second proposition is to increase focus on the energy in part of the equation. Now, I'm a big proponent of physical activity. I live in Colorado. I hike, I run. Before I blew my knee out, I skied. And the research is clear that physical activity, the exercise, provides a lot of benefits both to our physical and to our mental well-being. However, when you focus in on the research that's looking specifically at weight, what we see is that it is pretty clear that it's easier to impact weight, it's more effective to impact weight with what we eat than with what we do. You may have had the experience I've had where you're feeling really good about walking a mile, burning about 100 kcals. You pull up your calorie tracker to see what it earned you, and it's not the donut, it's a third of the donut. That's really what people are facing when they're trying to manage weight through physical exercise alone. Some of my research shows that people have what is called a progress bias. Basically, people psychologically overemphasize their goal-consistent behaviors, like exercise, and underemphasize their goal-inconsistent behaviors, like eating dessert. Personally, I know that I think that my 3-mile run has had a lot more impact on my health-related goals than the triple fudge chocolate cake I ate for dessert. The progress bias interferes with people's understanding of where they are and increases the tendency for people to feel like they're doing okay at any given time in terms of their goals. On top of that, the research that compares diet and exercise programs has found not only that the diet conditions, the diet interventions tend to be more effective, but that also sometimes people in the exercise conditions actually end up gaining more weight. I check that up to the progress bias, where people, again, are focusing in the exercise condition on their goal-consistent behaviors, and they tend to forget about the other side of the equation. Now, again, the situation is complex, and there are a variety of factors that influence a healthy weight. However, when you look at the time period when rates of overweight and obesity started increasing, we see that there's kind of a kink in these rates of overweight and obesity that has only been increasing since then. It coincides with when economies started producing more energy-dense foods. Energy-dense foods are foods that are high in sugar or high in fat or both. They basically are high in calories relative to the weight, relative to the amount that you, as a human, actually get to consume. this change in the type of food that we eat has played a role in the weight epidemic, and changing the food that we eat and the amounts of that food is going to be necessary to change back and move away from these increasing rates of overweight and obesity. What about the third point? What about spotlighting children as the primary target? There's a couple of reasons for this. First, societies tend to take responsibility for their kids seriously and to be more willing to intervene to protect this vulnerable population than typically they are for adults. Second, the idea of shining a spotlight on kids really follows some of the same type of evidence as the focus on prevention. It is easier to avoid gaining excess weight than it is to lose excess weight that has been gained. It is easier for a child to maintain a healthy weight and for parents and caregivers to help a child to maintain a healthy weight than for a young adult to lose the weight that has already been gained. Once kids become overweight or obese, there is a strong tendency for this to follow them across their life course, creating more problems as the child ages. So let's get in front of the issue and help children avoid gaining weight, maintain a healthy weight before they become overweight. Helping kids avoid gaining excess weight to begin with can be the more efficient path for overall increases in children's health and well-being. Now, my fourth point, to target parents and other caregivers, may be the most radical. Right now, it appears that across countries, the majority of effort, attention, and money is going into educating children to make healthy choices. Who can argue with education? Certainly not I. However, the more research I see and the more research I conduct in this area, the more I think that the ask of kids is too high and that it will be more effective to get parents and their caregivers on board. We should be targeting parents to better target kids. Sorry about that. We should be educating parents on how to create healthy environments for their kids. The education efforts should really be focused on the parents. And why do I say this? There's a variety of reasons for this. First is that the concept of what is healthy is very abstract. And we know from the developmental literature that children learn concrete things first, and only later are they able to learn abstract constructs. Some of my current research shows a big age difference in kids' understanding of the abstract construct of what is healthy. Little kids know that apples are healthy or that carrots are healthy, but they have real difficulty with the abstract concepts of what is healthy. This blue line is showing an increase from 5 to age 15 in an abstract level of understanding of what is healthy. The fact that small children, we're seeing really, up to age 9 at least, have this very concrete, specific ideas of what is healthy limits what they're able to do in terms of applying their knowledge to actually making choices. This ability increases so that 15-year-olds know that apples are healthy, but they also understand that fruit more generally, vegetables, dairy, lean meats are healthy. They've got a more abstract concept that they're able to use and apply in making choices. However, you will notice that this scale of abstract constructs of healthiness goes up to a 5, and even 15-year-olds are somewhat limited in what they're able to, the abstractness of their knowledge and their abstract constructs to be able to use in choices. So it's hard for kids to gain this abstract knowledge. Second, adults don't necessarily have a good concept of what is healthy and often do not always agree. What is a healthy diet? Is it Mediterranean, flexitarian, pescatarian, vegetarian, vegan, paleo, keto? We've got a lot of concepts of what is healthy that we don't necessarily agree on as adults. We're asking teachers to teach something to children that they haven't necessarily received a great deal of education on. And then we're asking kids to understand this and use this in making healthy choices. This is tough stuff to ask kids to do. Third, many adults have what's called the unhealthy equals tasty intuition. And the research on this intuition shows that for a lot of adults, they have an implicit idea that unhealthy things are yummy, they taste good, and that healthy things are less yummy. Because of this, there's a tendency right now for adults, in part because of this, there's a tendency for adults to want to give their children yummy things, and thus they're giving their children unhealthy things. That's something that we can intervene with and try to help adults change. Some of my current research shows that children also have this intuition, but interestingly, it's negatively correlated with age. Young children are the least likely to show this unhealthy equals tasty intuition. Young children are much more likely to think that there's lots of yummy things out there and not to think that there's a distinction between unhealthy and healthy, and especially compared to teens and compared to adults. So while healthy food needs a marketing makeover societally, we can have more success by really focusing on young children, getting young children really eating a healthy diet from the very beginning, making sure that kids learn that healthy foods can be yummy too, and that they keep seeing this across as they age. Now, study after study shows a surprising effect. Are you ready for this? Kids choose and eat things that they like. When a child has a choice between options, taste is the biggest determinant in terms of what they choose. And children tend to like the taste of indulgent, high energy foods, things that are sweet or fat or both. So when you offer a kid a choice between a healthy treat and what I'm calling an indulgent treat, and we've done this research with a lot of different kinds of these healthy and unhealthy treats, kids have a tendency to choose the gummies, the candies, the cookies, the high energy dense over the healthier options that they're provided with. Now, interestingly, one thing that you see with a lot of kids marketing for food products is the use of cartoon characters and licensed characters on foods. And what we see is that when kids have a choice between two of the same thing, let's say they have a choice between a package of carrots without a cartoon character and a package of carrots with a cartoon character, they're more likely to choose the package with the cartoon character. However, when you give a kid a choice between a healthy option and a more indulgent, tasty option, it doesn't matter where the cartoon character is. Whether the cartoon character is on the healthy option or on the indulgent option, kids are more likely to choose the indulgent option. So when you think about what we're asking of kids, we're asking kids to learn something that's really hard for them to learn, that developmentally is difficult for them to understand, that adults in their lives don't necessarily agree upon, and that kind of go against their desire for sweet, fat, tasty foods. We're asking them to take abstract knowledge and use it to make healthy choices. Now, I love fruit and vegetables. I even love kale, but I also love ice cream, and I love pie, and I love salty, fat French fries. Let's face it, one of the reasons that we as adults choose to eat kale instead of French fries is because we know it is better for us, by which we mean it will help us to achieve our longer-term health goals. But kids don't develop long-term goals until later. Many of you will have seen the adorable videos of kids in the Marshmallow Experiment. And the Marshmallow Experiment involves asking a kid to choose whether to eat one marshmallow now or to wait to eat 2 marshmallows later. And what we know is that this is really hard for kids. You can see this kid really struggles with this and ends up eating the single marshmallow. Asking a kid to choose carrots instead of potato chips or brown rice with dinner instead of French fries in order to be healthy later is asking kids to have a lot of goal orientation and delay of gratification that kids just are not likely to have developed. Given what we know, asking a kid to choose between a cupcake and an apple and expecting them to choose the apple, we shouldn't be surprised when that's not the case. We're asking kids to use abstract knowledge to make choices that are very non-intuitive for them to make. So what are we going to do? There is hope. The studies that show that when given a choice, kids choose by taste, also show that the single biggest determinant of what children eat is what's provided to them by their adults. This is very hopeful because we can try to use marketing to better market healthy diets to parents for their children. It'll be effective to target the adults and to get adults to understand what's healthy for their children, to get caregivers to change environments to provide much more healthy food and less energy-dense, unhealthy food. Let's ask parents to give their kids a choice between an apple and a banana rather than an apple and a cupcake or an apple and chips. Let's really focus on helping parents keep chips and soft drinks, cookies and ice cream to a minimum in what they're offering kids for rare occasions. Let's target parents to support, encourage, provide, and yes, teach healthy foods to their kids. Marketers are experts at product adoption. Let's approach getting parents to provide more nutritious relative to less nutritious options in terms of product adoption. Let's apply what we know about getting people to adopt products to getting parents to adopt healthy diets for their kids to prevent overweight and obesity. Our marketing objectives can be to get parents to improve their kids' diets for today and increase their understanding of healthy choices for a brighter tomorrow. Thank you very much.